Hi, everyone. I'm Patricia Raskin, and today I'm interviewing Rabbi Joel Seltzer. As Vice Chancellor for the Institutional Advancement at the Jewish Theological Seminary, Rabbi Seltzer was ordained in 2008 and served as a pulpit rabbi at Temple Emanu-El in Providence for 4 years. He was also executive director of Camp Ramah in the Poconos. A graduate of the Executive Leadership Institute for the Foundation of Jewish Camp, Rabbi Seltzer has been a presenter on strategic planning and philanthropy, and he has numerous published writings. Welcome, Rabbi Joel Seltzer.
Thank you so much, Patricia.
Yeah, great to have you. As we celebrate this centennial milestone, what aspects of Judaism, the tradition, the values, do you believe are essential that we need to preserve for now and for future generations?
First, let me begin by saying Mazal Tov to the entire Temple Emanu-El community for this incredible celebration. This is quite a moment to mark and to represent. And I think to answer your question, it's all about continuity, Jewish continuity. We know that the story of America doesn't have only success stories like Temple Emanu-El's. So the question is, what is the special sauce that a community can create in order to make sure that it retains its values and traditions and passes those on to future generations? And I think this comes in the form of Jewish education, first and foremost. I really have reflected a lot in my career on how we can show our participants in Judaism a joyful Judaism, to show them that we have rituals and holidays that bring great simcha into our lives, and that joy should feel like a overflowing within our community. And it is the building of that community through these moments of joyful Judaism that make these moments where all of a sudden Judaism isn't about observing the mitzvot because you have to, it's because you want to, and
Mm.
making that shift in people's minds from that place of do I have to do this, to the place of I want to do this and I know it brings joy and meaning into my life. I think that's the arc of Jewish education, and communities like Emanu-El put that forward and have always put that forward, and that's the recipe for success. It's the passing down continuously from generation to generation, that joyful Judaism, the connection to mitzvot, the recognition that it builds community, and that through that we bring meaning into our lives. And
Mm.
I really hope that I've built a career that has tried to pass on that love of Judaism to those future generations.
Uh, Can you share a memorable experience or story that you had as a clergy member that really brings us the spirit of Temple Emmanuel?
Temple Emanu-El is an amazing institution, and I felt that my very first visit in the spring of 2008. And I felt it again when my wife and I visited during the interview process. And I'll never forget some of my first impressions. Firstly, was, as we just spoke about, Temple Emanu-El's steadfast commitment to Jewish education as a core value of the institution. And it starts at a very young age and it doesn't stop, right? So I was introduced to Gimel consecration and the idea that young children in third grade would be making the Torah wimples that would be on the Torah for their bar or bat mitzvah several years later. And the Torah tutor program, where our teenagers post bar or bat mitzvah continued to be educators, actually learned to be educators through that program and passing down what they had learned to new B'nai Mitzvah in that process. And then, of course, I had the privilege of doing a lot of work in the Koffler Bornstein Adult Institute. And what other kind of shul has a brochure of multiple Jewish educational programs, a course listing, right, of courses
Yeah.
that you can choose on
Yes.
multiple nights of the week? And it was just such a vibrant community of learned Jews and of Jews seeking learning.
Mm.
And that's what inspired us and made us fall in love right away. And there was one other thing, which there was a moment during that Shabbat where my wife and I visited where we knew that this was going to be home for us. And it was Shabbat Kiddush lunch, where the entire community was together, of course, schmoozing. But towards the end, the teenagers grabbed around a couple chairs around some tables, and they began doing Shabbat Zmirot, singing, and Birkat Hamazon. And slowly some other chairs kind of joined them, and we did as well. And that's when we said, this is an incredibly special place where Jewish education is at the core of everything that's done here. And we want to be a part of this family and this community.
You also brought a tremendous amount of music to our temple. Talk about that.
Thank you. Yeah, music has always been an important part of my life. I grew up in an incredibly musical family, multiple generations of instrumentalists, and a great grandfather who was actually a composer. And so, yeah, I came with guitar in tow, sometimes mandolin, sometimes around a drum set. Some of my fondest memories are with the Purim Spiel band, led Schlepplin, we called ourselves. And as great as the Purim Spiel music was, even more meaningful were the rehearsals that we had, where we bonded together as friends playing music.
Yeah.
So being able to bring some of that to shul life, to our family first programs that we started with kind of a young family early Kabbalat Shabbat, right, was a program that I
Yes.
inherited from Rabbi Confer, and then turning that into sort of a camp style sing along Kabbalat Shabbat program was such a meaningful piece of my experience there. So yeah, always trying to bring the music. And of course, with Cantor Mayer, it was easy. And uh, I would love to harmonize with him, both, in the pews in the chapel and from the Bima as well. It was a music permeated the institution in such a powerful way that was
And
another reason
and
it
it
felt
still
like home.
does. Yeah,
Yes,
and it still does, and we have Kabbalah Shabbat
right.
still, so
Yes.
absolutely. How do you see the role of the rabbi evolving in response to all of the societal shifts that we've had?
Well, in answering this question, I have to think about my own career. And I think my own career, which I could not have drawn up. This wasn't the arc that I necessarily thought I would have. But I do think it reflects the evolution of the position of a rabbi in some interesting ways. So I began my journey, as you guys well know, as a pulpit rabbi, and I really did feel like that was going to be my career. And I had no real intention of leaving or exploring not for profit management until a very specific and, of course, personally meaningful and romantic idea came up of Camp Ramah the Poconos. And I remember thinking to myself, where can I have a generational impact in Jewish education? And of course, Ramah made me the Jew that I was. And so to have the ability to then shift a career and give back in that way was incredibly inspiring. What I discovered in that 11 years of running Camp Ramah was that running camp was only a very small part of it. In fact, the bulk of it was communication, board development, fundraising, strategic planning, and not for profit administration. And I want to pause here and say, I learned a lot of that from Temple Emanu-El. The
Mm,
4 years that I was at Temple Emanu-El, I was at budget meetings, I was at executive committee meetings, I was learning about endowments and the draw on endowments. I was even participating in fundraising efforts, big and small. I was always included in that. And it was a shul with excellent governance
mm,
and functioning committees. And it taught me what I needed to know going into this new role as executive director. And I was always grateful for coming from what I called an excellent shul before I
mm,
found my way into not for profit management. And then most recently, of course, I returned home to another alma mater at JTS to try to give back. And as we'll discuss, to try to find the next generation of Jewish leadership who
mm.
will lead our communities. And I didn't know that was going to be the next arc in my career either. But I have found that at each stage, I'm looking for a meaningful way to pay it forward,
Yeah.
to make sure that the things that I love and the institutions that have been built before me continue to thrive and flourish in the next generations.
But I think what you're saying here is that there's so much opportunity within the role of rabbi. I mean, in terms of being an executive director, being a pulpit rabbi, working for a national organization, that it's not one dimensional. And I think often we think of that. We think a rabbi or someone in clergy is a pulpit rabbi or pulpit clergy. And you're showing us that there's a lot of opportunity for different skill level. We all come with different, although we may come to learn the Torah, we have different skill sets, and there's an opportunity in Judaism to be able to utilize those.
Absolutely. And you said it perfectly. The role of a rabbi now is multifaceted. The field of the rabbinate has evolved and changed. Day schools, Hillels, right, not-for-profit management, and of course entrepreneurial rabbinic
Yes.
ventures, educationally, schools, synagogues as well. So yes, and at JTS we often say this to the rabbinical students that are entering the program, that this opportunity, this professional path is going to afford you with incredible options, and
Mhm.
especially in certain ways that weren't always there several generations ago.
Yeah.
However, let me just say, I still think at the core, the role of the rabbi is to guide a community, through time and space and prayer and ritual, and joy and tragedy and triumph. And I think
Mhm.
the connection of the rabbi to synagogue will remain, in my mind, the essential role of the rabbi for every generation to come.
Yeah. And when you just talked about hope and challenges and tragedies, what do you think we are facing today, our most pressing challenges in the Jewish community, and how can we address them?
Uh, for several years, um, I'll start over. I feel the most pressing issue for our Jewish community right now is the issue of the pipeline to Jewish professional leadership. And this is a phrase, pipeline, that's been thrown around a lot. And there have been several articles, even The Atlantic, on the dearth of rabbinic leadership, throughout the movements. And not just related to Judaism, by the way, but a phenomenon that's being found throughout faith communities in America. We have to find ways to identify young people who are showing and living a love of joyful Judaism. We have to find them earlier. We have to, as a community, begin to embrace the idea that we want those individuals to find their most meaningful path through life, and especially if it means being a Jewish leader and helping our communities thrive and flourish. I think for too long we've said that the ideal path for the Jewish individual with the smarts, the chops, the emotional intelligence is, go to be a successful lawyer, go to be a wonderful doctor, and of course we need those. And it's time to start tapping people's shoulders and saying we need rabbis, we need cantors, we need Jewish educators, we need people who will run religious schools and make a religious school experience inspiring. We need Jewish day school educators. And having spent my life, most of my professional life at Ramah, the laboratory for young Jewish
Yes.
leadership, I will say, they're there. They are there and they are showing it to us. But even as executive director, I didn't comprehend that my bigger responsibility, even more than running the best camp and the safest camp that I could, was tapping the shoulders of those individuals and saying, I need you to become a rabbi. I need you to become a Jewish educator. You should be a cantor. You are an amazing Rosh Shirah. Now you should go to cantorial school. I could have done more. And that's something I've been reflecting on. And now my role at JTS gives me some opportunity to find ways of hopefully answering this challenge and finding, how to reach this next generation and inspire them to be Jewish leaders, Jewish professional leaders, and to be the ones that will, um, inspire our communities for generations to come.
Yeah. And my next question ties into what you're saying about
Mm-hmm.
finding the right Jewish leaders and tapping into our youth and really cultivating that. Looking ahead to the next 100 years as we celebrate the last 100 years in our centennial for Temple Emanu-El, what are your hopes and aspirations for the future of Judaism?
This is a question that would have had a very different answer on October 6th of 2023
Hmm.
than it does after October 7th. And what I mean by that was, if you had asked me this question last year, I think my hopes and dreams for the community would have been, um, maybe a little less focused, a little more broad, uh, changing dynamics. I hope we retain our sense of Judaism. I think our world has changed. I think we've experienced a real inflection point in our experience as American Jews in the last year, certainly in our relationship to Israel. And so my hopes have also evolved and changed. And my hopes are is that this will be a sea change moment in American Judaism that will result in a reclamation of Jewish pride within the American zeitgeist. And it's up to us. What it will take is not a moment of retreat, but a moment of rededication into our Jewish ideals and morals. I hope this means that more people will say, we need to join a synagogue and we need to send our kids to Hebrew school earlier and we need to send them to Israel in high school. And I hope that more people, and I know that many people are saying right now, and not out of fear, maybe we should send our kid to Jewish day school because there they're going to learn the Hebrew. They're going to unlock the key to Jewish identity building or Jewish camp. And of course, Jewish learning and reconnecting to our texts and our rituals. This is a moment right now where Jewish pride is going to be the antidote to the fear and the panic and the challenge that we're experiencing. That has always been the blessing of America is a Jewish experience that could be loud and proud. Rhode Island, of course, knows that best and first and foremost, right, in Newport. And this is a time. This is a time for us, just like those Jews of Torah Synagogue,
In Newport,
to
correct,
yeah,
Rhode Island, correct? The first
correct.
synagogue in the country.
Yes, it is our time to write the metaphorical letter to America, saying we are here, we are proud, we are living our Judaism, and we know that the American community will embrace that. So that's my hope.
Yeah, yeah. Last question. I know you talked a lot about the youth and young people really getting involved in the rabbinate and seeing the wisdom and the knowledge and learning and wanting to step up. So having said that, what advice would you offer to aspiring rabbis or those considering a career in Jewish leadership?
Well, I've long been inspired by this up and coming generation of Jewish leaders, and I got to see it live and in action at Ramah for all those years. And the secret of Ramah, of course, is, and don't tell anyone, of course, camp isn't for the campers, it's for the staff.
Interesting.
Right? That actually the educational impact of the moment is even more powerful if you are 18 to 22 years old and you are choosing this and living this, and you have to be a dugma, a role model who lives out that Jewish life. And I've seen it. This is a generation that wants to give back. It's a generation that's driven by ideals. It's a generation that wants mission aligned
Mm-hmm.
thinking. And what I would say is find meaning. If you want a career that gives you a life of meaning, then pursuing a career in Jewish professional leadership will help you find it. And Patricia, I even remember I gave a high holiday sermon years ago. Of course, everyone will remember every word. But I recall saying, unfortunately, Judaism cannot promise us a long life or a life filled with only joy and not sorrow. But Judaism can promise us a life of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And it does. It delivers that to us if we're open for that. So my message would be, if you're seeking meaning, if you want to help others find meaning, then pursuing this path of the rabbinate, of the clergy, of Jewish educator is going to be a source of great sipuk nefesh, of great satisfaction of the soul for you or for anyone who chooses that path.
Hmm. Any closing thoughts as we approach the centennial or in the centennial year at Temple Emanu-El?
I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. I want to say modeh ani le Temple Emanu-El. It was the perfect beginning to my rabbinic experience. I loved everything about the community and the people, and still do. And so I am so privileged to be celebrating with all of you and to offer my words of gratitude for the experience that you gave me and my family in our time there. And so, toda rabba lechem, and Mazal Tov on Mea Shanim. And as we say in Judaism, Ad Mea Ve'esrim, but that's not enough. So let's say Od Mea, another 100 years of Temple Emanu-El. May it be so. Ken Yehi Ratzon.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rabbi Seltzer. What a beautiful and inspirational and uplifting interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Patricia Raskin, and we've just done a wonderful interview with Rabbi Joel Seltzer. All right. Bye for now, everyone.